couple weeks ago, we started a series on being overwhelmed, and we've all been overwhelmed at some point in our lives. Last time we looked at stress, and today goes right along with that because nothing can overwhelm us more like stress or stress us out than money. Debts and bills and bankruptcy and college and prom cause all kinds of common words that cause all kinds of stress and to be overwhelmed. You know, I know there's not much enthusiasm when you walk into the church and the preacher starts talking about money. In fact, a lot of people think that's what churches talk about a lot. Most all churches and pastors want is their money. One Sunday morning, a preacher announced to his congregation, he says, I have 3 sermons right here on the podium. A $5,000 sermon that lasts 5 minutes, a $1,200 sermon that lasts 15 minutes, and a $10 sermon that lasts an hour. Now we're going to take up a collection to see which one I preach. I'm not talking about money to manipulate you into giving to this church. We don't manipulate people around here about money. I want to discuss money issues for 2 reasons. First, I'm preaching on money because Jesus preached on money. As a matter of fact, there are over 2,000 passages in the Bible that deal with money and possessions. In fact, Jesus talked more about money than any other topic. Half of Jesus' parables deal with money in some form or another, and possessions. Secondly, I want to preach about money because we need a refresher. A lot of us are in deep debt. A lot of us have bad spending habits. A lot of us are very selfish with our money. A lot of us don't give back to God. And so one of the biggest sources of stress in our lives is money, and we need to address it and face it head on. I know that a lot of you deal daily with the tension of money management. I saw a statistic not too long ago of a survey that said that the primary reason for over 50% of all divorces in America was financial pressure. Financial pressure. Some kind of an argument, some kind of a problem with money. I'm preaching about money because God does not want you to live under the constant strain of financial difficulty. God does not want anything in your life to consume you and master you, and that includes money. We either master our money or it masters us. And you've heard someone use the phrase to announce that they're correct. They say, I'm correct, for I was right on the money. Right on the money. Know this, God is always right on the money. And you can be too. You don't have to live your life stress-filled over your money, over your finances. You can be right on the money. And so I want to give you 4 key words this morning, very simple words that are essential to being right on the money. Here's the first word, strategy. Strategy. We need a strategy. We've got to have a plan for our money. The old saying is, if you fail to plan, you'll plan to fail. The sad fact is, most of us don't have any financial strategy. We live paycheck to paycheck, not really thinking about the future of our finances, and when we get paid, we spend it right away without even thinking where it should go. Look what he says in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6 through 10, and we're going to camp out here on these 2 or 3 verses. Paul was telling Timothy, who was a young pastor, he says, godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it's certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare and into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Do you ever find yourself saying this? I don't know where all my money goes. I don't know where all my money went. I don't know where it all went. That's a giant warning sign, a giant warning light that says you're in trouble. If you don't know where your money goes, you're in trouble. Maybe you're not keeping good records. You know, people say money talks, but it doesn't talk. It doesn't talk. It sneaks away quietly, and it doesn't tell you it's leaving. It just doesn't speak to you. It just walks away. Proverbs 21:20 says this, in the house of the wise are stores of choice food and oil, but a foolish man devours all that he has. We should store away some money. We should have a strategy for that. Maybe you're like the little boy who wanted $100 so bad. He kept praying to the Lord, Lord, give me $100. Lord, give me $100. And he finally said, this is not working. I'm going to write the Lord a letter. So he addressed the letter to the Lord. And that's all he knew to do. He didn't know where it was, where God was, and so he said, to the Lord. And so the Postal Service picked it up like they kind of do those Santa Claus letters, but picked up the letter to the Lord, and they didn't know what to do with it, and they sent it to the White House. Well, Bill Clinton was the president at the time. It's a true story. And it got to his desk. His secretary said, this little boy has been praying for $100. We don't know why he wants $100, but he's been praying for it. President Clinton said, got $5 out of his own wallet, and he said, mail this back to the little boy. And so he did. That's what happened. The little boy got the $5 back, and he was very grateful for that $5. But he sat down, and he said, I think I need to tell God I'm thankful for what he gave me. So he sat down and he wrote another letter to the Lord. And he addressed it to the Lord, the same address. He said, Lord, I thank you for the $5. But as I see on the postage, it went through Washington, D.C., and those jerks took $95 out. That's what happens. You know, oftentimes we spend all because we have no strategy. We have no strategy. The best way to keep from spending money carelessly is to have a budget. A budget is simply a plan. It's a strategy for spending your money. A budget, as Dave Ramsey always says, is telling your money where you want it to go. This is where I want it to go. This is what I want it to do. Proverbs 27:23 backs him up. Know the state of your affairs and watch your business interests closely. With every engaged couple I counsel before they get married, I emphasize as much as possible about having a budget and sticking to it. Will you always stick to it? No. But you need to have some kind of plan to try. A Christian's budget, here's what I tell young couples, should have 3 different goals for our money. The first goal is bills. Bills. As a matter of fact, Romans 13:7 instructs us, give everyone what you owe him. If you owe him taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. In other words, pay what you owe. Pay what you owe. Don't come back later and say, you know, I really don't think I owe you that because you did this to me, blah, blah, blah. If you owe it, pay it. Bills. Another area is savings. Just putting a little bit aside. Putting a little bit aside. If you don't have a plan to save, start one. According to Social Security records, 85 out of 100 Americans have saved less than $250 when they reach the age of 65. That's hard to believe. They also say more than 1/4 of Americans did not save or invest any of their income in the last year. 1/4 of Americans. Bills, pay them. Savings, save it. The last one is giving. Giving. If you're a Christian, this is a no-brainer. Proverbs 3:9 says, honor the Lord with your wealth. Give to Him the first fruits of all of your crops. Giving must be a priority to the Christian. Jennifer and I learned at a young age in our young marriage that we need to make giving a priority of our budget. It's been a key factor to us to try to learn to master our money. By giving regularly to the Lord, you remind yourself, as Greg just said a minute ago, that God's in control, God receives the glory, and when you give Him the money, you're saying, God, you're in control of my finances, you're in control of things in my life. Here's a paraphrase of 1 Corinthians 16:2. On every Lord's Day, you should put aside something from what you have earned during the week and use it for the offering. The amount depends on how much the Lord has helped you earn. Now that's very important. If you don't think God's helped you earn the money that you made, don't bother to give it to Him. Don't bother. But if you realize that you would have zero without God, you need to give to God. That's that easy. Give generously. Give generously to God. God has given to you very, very generously, hasn't He? You're alive. You have food this day. You have your family around you. You have a place to worship. God is very generous to us. We need to give to Him generously. I read of a plan called the 10-10-80. The 10-10-80 plan goes like this. 10% to God, 10% to savings / retirement, and 80% to live on. Could you live on 80% of what you make? You'd be surprised. if you give God what He wants and what He deserves first. That's a strategy. You don't have to use that strategy. Use whatever strategy that's biblical in nature. The Word of God tells us to have a strategy. Proverbs 21:5 says this, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as quick spending leads to poverty." Some of you need to write that verse down. Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as quick spending leads to poverty. Where are you? Are you in poverty because of your spending habits? Or you have some profits going on? If you have a strategy, our first word, you'll be on your way to mastering your money. Second word is this, satisfaction. Satisfaction. The reason we have problems managing our money is because we have desire for stuff, and that desire is out of control. It's out of control. Look at verse 6. Now, godliness with contentment is great gain. We could park right there the rest of the day and talk about that verse. Godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it's certain we can carry nothing out. Remember a few weeks ago when we talked about stress, we said what's going to happen when we die? They're going to sell all of our stuff. They're going to have a garage sale, and they're going to sell all of our stuff because they don't want it. What's going to happen when you die? You can take nothing with you. Nothing with you but your soul. And so Paul tells Timothy, you need to have some satisfaction. Earl Wilson once said this, today there are three kinds of people. The haves, the have-nots, and the have-not paid for what they have. Maybe you're in that last category. You have some stuff but you haven't paid for it. Well, verse 8 says, and having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. Food and clothing, be content, have some satisfaction. But here's some evidence of what that man just said. In December 2014, the U.S. Household Consumer Debt Profile showed this. The average credit card debt of Americans is $15,611. The average mortgage debt is $155,192, and the average student loan is $32,264. That's what the debt we're living under. In total, American consumers owe this, $11.74 trillion in debt. That's not the government's debt. That's our debt. $882.6 billion in credit card debt in 2014. $8.1 trillion in mortgages and $1.13 trillion in student loans. Now, let's get a little more specific. According to NPD, which is a sales tracking company, Americans paid, listen to me, Americans paid $6.46 billion last year for running shoes. Do you know how many Americans run? Not that many. Isn't that crazy? Running shoes. Running shoes. According to the Wall Street Journal, a family of four pays about $4,000 a year for smartphones, easily eclipsing what they used to pay for cable TV and internet. Around 1.2 million personal bankruptcies were filed in 2012, and there were 2.9 million foreclosures in 2010. We have a problem. And when people buy things they can't afford, the problem is not the money. The problem is what's going on inside, because we're trying to find satisfaction through the things. It's not the money. It's all about our unrealistic expectations of how we should live life and the things we should have. We think we should have anything we want. And the common thread here is that all of us want more no matter how much money we make. It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire, a billionaire, or a hundredaire. We think we deserve more because we're not satisfied with what we already have. We've fallen into a trap of always wanting more. J.D. Rockefeller was a billionaire, and he was asked this question one time. How much money does it take to satisfy a man? And here was his answer. Just a little more. Just a little more. Research indicates that most households tend to spend 10% more on their income, no matter what their income level is. In other words, we spend 10% more than what we make. Doesn't matter if you're in this bracket or this bracket. Bob Russell writes, more money never satisfies our desire for more. In fact, the more we have, the more temptation intensifies. The more we have, the more we want. And he's right. Many Christians are trapped with never being satisfied with what they have. Benjamin Franklin told this. He asked this question, who's rich? Then he answered it himself, he that is content. Next question, who's that? Nobody. Nobody. Ecclesiastes 5:11 says, the more you have, the more you spend. Right up to the limits of your income. So what's the advantage of wealth except to watch it as it runs through your fingers? Remember this, the key to being satisfied is to realize that money will not make you happy. Money's not going to make you happy. Money's not evil. We'll see that in just a second. Money's not evil, and it's sure not going to make you happy. I know some rich people, and I can tell you they're not any happier than you are. In fact, they have more expensive bills than you do and a lot more stuff to worry about. Rosa Grayson, you ever heard of her? She won the state lottery in Washington, paid her this. The rest of her life, every week, she receives a $4,000 check. She's miserable. She hides in her apartment all day long. She describes her life now as her nerves being shot. She says, everybody's trying to get my money. She said, people are so mean, and I hope those who love money win the lottery themselves and see what happens to them. Listen to some of the world's wealthiest people, what they had to say about money. Railroad magnate W.H. Vanderbilt said this, the care of $200 million is enough to kill anyone. There's no pleasure in it. Maybe you say, well, I'd like to try. $200 million. Turn to the 20th century multimillionaire John Jacob Astor said, I am the most miserable man on the earth. Henry Ford said, I was happier when I was doing a mechanic's job. Andrew Carnegie said, millionaires seldom smile. When are we going to realize that things and money don't make us happy? When is that going to happen? Well, Jesus said this in Luke 12:15. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. Why don't we get that? If you are spending and spending and trying to satisfy a void in your heart, it's time to realize it can never be filled with things. Stop today and be satisfied with what you have. Paul says, godliness with contentment is great gain. Third word is self-discipline. Self-discipline. Look at verse number 9. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare and into many foolish and harmful lusts which drown men in destruction and perdition. Key words, temptation, snare, foolish, harmful lusts. Proverbs 13:18 says, he who ignores discipline comes to poverty and shame. Do you know why talking about money is so difficult? Do you know why you don't like to hear the preacher talk about money? Because it comes down to the issue of discipline. Those of you who save appropriately, live within your means, give to the Lord, will pleasantly sit through a sermon like this every week and say amen. But those of you who are in financial bondage don't want to be reminded of your lack of discipline. The truth is that proper money management comes down to whether or not you're a disciplined person. And discipline covers a lot of areas in life, doesn't it? Discipline in your exercise, discipline in your finances, discipline in your food, discipline in this and that and the other. David Moore identifies 4 spending habits that are a sign that we lack discipline with our money. He says there's impulsive spending. Impulsive spending. It's the person who sees something and thinks, I have got to have that. I've got to have it. An impulsive spender goes to the store planning to get a pair of shoes, and they walk out with not only the shoes but an expensive outfit to match. Someone once said, a bargain is a price you can't refuse for something that you won't use. Impulsive spending. And then he says there's compulsive spending. Compulsive spending. They have a deep unmet need in their life that they're trying to fill by purchasing things. When things get bad or they get down, they shop. Or they buy something expensive to placate their pain. I think I'll go buy this. This will make me feel better. I think I'll go get that. That'll make me feel better. Compulsive. There's also special interest spending. They're pretty good. This kind of person's pretty good with their budget, but they have one weakness. It could be clothing. It could be electronic gadgets. It may be some kind of a tool or recreation equipment. It doesn't matter what it is. When people are trapped in this kind of spending, their hands, their palms get all sweaty. Their heart begins to race when they see the newest or better fad, and they just can't help themselves. They got to have it. Then there's the status-seeking spending. This person purchases things to impress others. They want to have the best-looking house, the most expensive car, the best clothes, designer clothes with the right labels. By the way, have you noticed lately that, the last few years, that labels used to be on the inside of clothing. Now they're on the outside of clothing. Why? It's status. Status symbol. Even men's underwear has the labels on the outside for the guys who wear their pants hanging to their knees. It's status. But to spend money you don't have to impress is foolish. It's foolish. Proverbs 13:7 says, one man pretends to be rich, yet he has nothing. Another pretends to be poor, yet he has great wealth. Our lack of discipline and our bad spending habits are the core of our money problems. Some of you remember actor Errol Flynn. He once said this, my problem comes in reconciling my gross habits with my net income. My gross habits with my net income. I want you to write this down, this sentence. My financial freedom is not based on my income. It's based on how I spend it. My financial freedom is not based on my income. It's based on how I spend it. Doesn't matter what bracket that you're in. It's based on how you spend it. Proverbs 17:16 says, of what use is money in the hand of a fool, since he has no desire to get wisdom? Here's the last word and we're finished. Spirit. Spirit. Verse number 10. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. That verse says, doesn't say money is evil. It says the love of money is evil. The love of money is a root of not just one evil, but all kinds of evil. You've seen it. You've seen it. Love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, not money itself. And this verse gives us the tragic results of loving money. Spiritual problems and sorrows and evil. So here's a statement, a scary statement actually. Your attitude toward money actually reveals your attitude toward money actually reveals your attitude toward God. Your attitude toward money reveals your attitude toward God. You can't separate your Christianity from your money. You can't separate your walk with Christ with your money. You can't separate those. So your attitude toward money reveals your attitude toward God. Do you trust Him or don't you? Do you have faith that He'll do what He said He'll do? Because your handling of money speaks volumes about the spiritual condition of your life. Didn't Jesus say this? Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew chapter 6. Jesus is very clear. In other words, Jesus was saying that there's a definite relationship between your spiritual life and your wallet. And if you say, I really love God, if you say, I really love Jesus Christ, then you're going to give Him control of your finances. The old saying, put your money where your mouth is. Give God control of your finances. It's not going to work any other way. It's not going to work. I'll be real honest with you. If you're not regularly giving some of your income back to God, that's a sign that you have a spiritual problem.
Coming back. great eating experience? Then you need to come over to Twister's. Twister's is a locally owned diner that simply has it all. From salads to burgers, blue plate specials, and a terrific kids menu, Twister's is sure to please any member of your family. Twister's also has the best ice cream you'll find. From a simple cone to specialty sundaes, Mayfield's soft serve is a treat anytime. Dine in or just drive through. Twister's is an experience you don't want to miss, whether you're looking for a great meal or just to satisfy that sweet tooth. Twister's Diner, just a good place